Alrighty, guys. Today here we have Ann Whippen from Wood Chicks Barbecue. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, it took us a little while to get this going, but we got it together. And you had a restaurant to maintain and other stuff going on, so we landed it. So here we are today.
Yes, thank you.
Okay,
and we are definitely 6 feet apart.
Yeah, definitely 6 feet apart.
More than that. So let's just kind of kick this off, right at the beginning. So tell us about your experience. Like, where did you start into barbecue?
I started in 1996, competing with my dad at the Stone Mountain, Georgia Barbecue State Championship. And out of the gate, first one we won, went to the Royal and won first place in pork. So I was totally excited about the whole experience, especially, being, at the Royal with my dad and doing very well. And you can't really make a living at competitive barbecue, I learned. So I was in the hotel industry, food and beverage, and then basically did research on rigs and decided that I would be able to make a living by vending and competing at the same time. So I bought my big trailer, which actually I have down here in Florida now. I have a new restaurant down here called The Deviled Pig. And the reason why I came down here is because my daughter lives down here and she had our first grandbaby 6 months ago.
Oh, so, cool. Congratulations.
Oh, nice. Congratulations.
Thank you. So I got heavy into competitions, and then I opened up my first restaurant in 2004, Wood Chicks Barbecue in Chesapeake, Virginia. And then the second one in Chesapeake again in 2006. And the third one, which is my largest freestanding restaurant, in 2008. And then I got a call from a gentleman who owned property in Chicago and asked me to run that restaurant there. So I took my youngest daughter at the time, went to Chicago and ran a very successful restaurant called Chicago Q. And my lease was running up with Wood Chicks, and my mom was watching it, and she's like, I want to retire. I want to go to Florida. So I ended up not renewing my lease, staying in Chicago. So I was with Chicago Q for 5 years, and then the Chicago Cut Steakhouse Group asked me to do a concept for them, Southern Cut Barbecue off of Michigan Avenue. And did that for 2 years. And then the whole thing came up with the grandbaby. So I decided to come down to Florida, and my mom's down in Naples too. So it worked out to be a good move.
Oh, wow.
Wow. That's a lot of moving.
Yeah.
It's a lot of opportunity. That's great. So you were kind of like executive chef for them, or just, did you own any of those, or you just kind of coming in and fixing the menu?
Chicago Q, I developed the menu and I was half owner, and then Southern Cut, I was the executive chef. And we were trying to open other concepts where I would, have ownership, but it was just too expensive in Chicago. So I thought that was not going to happen. And that was another reason why I came down here. Awesome. And Florida needs, barbecue. So why not?
Yeah, they do.
Well, arguably everywhere does. They should be on every street corner.
I really know that does competition barbecue personally down there is Chad Ward.
Oh yeah, Chad's great.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of good, competitors down here, and I haven't competed down here yet because I've been tied up with the restaurant. But my daughter wants to get into it, and I have my rigs down here, so we're looking at possibly the fall, depending on what's going on with the big Corona thing. So we'll just wait it out and see.
Actually, I just saw today. I haven't read it yet, so don't quote me on this. But they're trying to do KCBS. I think it's just the National Barbecue League. But what they're doing is they're doing virtual competitions where you can actually win prizes. I don't know how I'm going to do it yet.
I think that's a great idea. I mean, I don't know. It's worth a shot. Why not?
I think what you do is that you show in the box and they're like, okay, look. And then everyone's like, cool, whatever. And then you bite it, and whoever can sell that the best, that's your taste score. And then I don't know.
Right.
I don't, just kidding. I don't know what it is.
You're going to fake it.
No, but you can literally judge everything except for the taste, right? If you bite into a rib, you can like here.
Tenderness, you can kind of take the rib and pull the meat off of it. You can see if there's a tug.
And then brisket, you can do the snap and bend.
So there's ways around it, I guess. Bite through chicken,
Yeah, exactly.
You can show the bone, of the rib.
Yeah.
So there you go. That could work. Do the little
opportunity.
Pull. Yeah, I get you. I'm going to do it. Yeah. Whatever it is, I'm doing it. So I'm super excited about it. And so you kind of were just cooking, doing your thing. You were competing a lot back in the day. In fact, if I remember, you at very first, you kind of hit the ground running with like, I'm trying to remember. Was it bake a potato recipes and stuff like that? Was kind of where you got going in the restaurant. You won the Royal that way. If I remember.
When I won the best potato salad.
Yeah.
Okay, that was at the World Food Championships. Yeah, I won first place. And that was funny because I was working with the DC firefighter guys when we won in DC Grand Champion. And that was a side category that I didn't even realize was there. And I said, you know what, we're here, let's just do it. And then we ended up winning it. And that got us into the contest in Vegas. And then we ended up winning the whole thing, 10,000. It was amazing. When you least expect it. Yeah.
$10,000 for potato salad?
Yeah, and I actually did it on the barbecue Brawl, and Chris Lilly really liked it and said he would have given me another 10 if he had it.
So that I noticed that was like early on. So and then the barbecue world, what did life look like in the barbecue world for you and competition specifically? Like let's say before Pitmasters started.
Before Pitmasters, it was tough because obviously being a woman in the field and you had to prove yourself and. Obviously, by winning more and more contests, you gain the respect, and so it took a few years, but I was pretty consistent back then. So,
well, obviously now because you just won Barbecue Brawl with some freaking heavy hitters, including our girl Susie Bullock from Utah. So,
it was a lot of fun. It was a great competition. It was a good crew of people. Everyone got along great. Nobody was, being the showboat or anything. So it was a wonderful experience.
I also read that you got stung by a bee while you were doing that show.
Oh, I didn't even know that was out there. So yeah, I did. I was, they have medics there the whole time. So, if you cut yourself or whatever, and I was grabbing a squeeze bottle, and for some reason the bees were hanging around my area, and sure enough, it bit me on the finger, and I was like, medic, and they came over and they looked at it, and she starts scraping like the little, the needle thing on my finger. I'm like, that's pushing it in further, but she did get it out, and you just kind of forget about the pain because you're in the moment. So it
hurts. That little thing, man, right? And it stays there, and then it swells up, and I have honeybees in the back, and there's people who sting themselves on purpose. So they're like stinging themselves so they cannot get that reaction. So I'm not there yet. I'm not stinging myself with no damn bee. But so tell us about that experience on Barbecue. I know they're doing a second season right now.
They are.
And we've kind of talked to Linnea and Susie a little bit about it, but we want to hear your take since you won the whole thing. How was that experience for you on Barbecue Brawl?
It was tough because no phones, no papers, no nothing. And it was when they started the clock, there was no wait time. It was like the clock started. And the hardest challenge was they had limited meats, for each, say we were doing the Texas beef or whatever. They would only have 2 racks of ribs or, 1 filet. So you had to really muscle your way into the coolers to get the piece of meat. So you were at the mercy of what was left and how strong you were. And also logistically where I was standing, I was always the second to the furthest away. So I had the furthest to get, so that's the biggest challenge is first getting your meat. And then the pantry on the first day is so overwhelming. You're just trying to figure out where everything is. And because you're short on time, you're just kind of grabbing what you can. And they had limited, they would only have 2 things of honey or whatever. And if you said, hey, I need honey, and your competitor doesn't want to loan it to you or give you what's left that they didn't use, then you were out whatever you had in your head. So you were always constantly thinking about, what you were doing. And a lot of it was, it was barbecue and we didn't know what kind of pits we were going to cook on. So we had an offset, a kettle, and then they introduced some other cookers along the way. So fortunately I cooked on almost everything there. So that was good for me, just having a lot of experience. And also, just from being in restaurants and cooking different things besides meat, like vegetables, desserts, that sort of thing, that experience helped me along too.
That's awesome. I think they should have promoted that a little bit more on how limited your guys' stuff would have implemented the Brawl
you really
a little bit more.
You don't see that at all.
No, that'd be awesome to bring on for the second season, promote that a little bit. Like literally we have 4 competitors, 3 racks of ribs, or
because you're at the mercy of what's left. And I will tell you that that's what happened with Tuffy. He went for the brisket, and honestly, I don't think there was much left at that point, or he thought maybe he could, do well with it in a short cook time, which ended up not being the case. But, you are at the mercy of what you can get. It wasn't like everybody could get the same meat. So it was tough in that respect.
And one thing is that with the barbecue brawl, I was doing a video today for ThermoWorks, right? And it wasn't live, of course. And if you make a mistake, you stop, right? And then you continue again. All right, start again. I was a mess. Like my head was so all over the place. How is it with all this cooking like that, with all this friggin' I mean, because you've done Chopped, you've done I think you did barbecue flay, and you think you beat it.
I did the throwdown, and then the Kingsford Barbecue Championship on Versus. The thing is, you just kind of have to forget about the mic and the cameras and just, focus on what you're doing. And it's kind of nerve-wracking in the beginning, even for me, and I've done it a bunch of times. So it had to be tougher, on someone like Susie who hadn't done it at all. So she did really, really well, though. But you really don't see, there's so much edited out of the show. So there were lots of things that I made 2 and 3 like side dishes, and I would have Bobby try one and he would say, and, I'd wait till he's like, okay, thumbs up, or I tasted it and I liked it. So there were actually more things being cooked and more recipes being done than you actually see on the show.
Yeah, I hear it was like from basically sun up to sundown kind of cooking.
It was tough. Oh yeah. Well, even though some of the cooks were shorter, you had to get up early in the morning because, you had to go over all the rules. And then they did the digital challenge, which started off the day. And then, then you get into your cooks, and then you get into all the interviews after that. And then you get into the judging. So yeah, it would be late at night that we would get back. And then you were starting again the next morning, and it was back to back. I mean, we were out there for a week, and there was only one down day that we didn't cook. And that was the day that we did interviews all day long. And that's grueling because they're going through every single step of everything that you do. And, because they're taking notes, they have someone with you the whole time kind of writing everything down. So you're rehashing everything, whether it be good, bad, they just want to hear it all. So it's tiring. It's very tiring.
Man, it sounds like a KCBS competition sounds way easier than a TV show.
Yeah. This was a tough one. I would say this was probably the toughest competition all the way around that I've ever done, just because of the day in, day out, and all the different things they had us cooking. Chopped, you're in and out, in a few hours. It's like cut and dry. This is nonstop going.
So go ahead, Anthony.
Oh, go ahead. No, I was just going to hit up a little bit. Like we asked Phil, and I think Susie, what was it like? When you went into the room and finally seeing your competitors? Because Phil said he's like, oh, there's Tuffy Stone. He must be a judge. He didn't realize he was a competitor.
Well, that was the first thing I said. I said, hey, Tuffy. I said, oh, so you're judging here too? And he's like, no, I'm competing. And I was absolutely shocked. I'm like, well, that's it. But they didn't. It's funny. We were all in the same hotel, but they did everything very well, where we did not see each other until we were all met in the lobby and we're going to the set. So it was right then and there.
Wow.
So to switch gears, and let's go back to barbecue a little bit. You've obviously cooked a lot, had a lot of barbecue. One question I really like to ask people is, in your mind, what makes bad barbecue?
Over-saucing meats.
Over-saucing so you don't get
because when you're putting too much sauce on your meat, you're masking the flavor of the smoke in the meat, the quality of the meat. The flavor of the meat. And so I just think bad barbecue is when you over sauce. That's just me.
Yeah. And so
that's how I feel about saucing brisket. I don't know why people are moved to saucing brisket.
I do not like, I will say my white sauce is quite good on brisket because it has horseradish and garlic in it. I do like, to have that on the side. So, it's fun to, have sauces on the side, and you could kind of dip the meat in it and get different regional experiences, whether it's a mustard sauce or vinegar sauce or whatever. So it's kind of fun in that respect. But I don't think there's really any bad barbecue. But over saucing is definitely something I just don't personally like.
Yeah, bad barbecue is always good jerky, in my opinion. So,
yeah.
I've had some really good sauced brisket. I have. I know that Smitty from Loot and Booty, he sauces his for competitions pretty decently, and it was amazing. But I never put sauce on mine. But over saucing is definitely a thing. So when you're looking to, like, let's say I'm a new cook, what am I looking to do as far as flavor profiles to go? So obviously you don't want to over sauce because you don't want to hide that. But what are we hiding? Where does the good barbecue come from? So let's say I'm trying to cook something. What am I looking for as far as I know? Okay,
well, you want it to be obviously pleasing to the eye. Like with any type of food, you want it to look good, and usually, if it looks good, it's probably going to taste good. You don't want something that's obviously going to be burnt on the outside. Although I do like burnt ends.
We all do. We all do.
So it's a matter of what really looks good to you. And I think that influences when you're tasting it. If it looks good, it's going to taste maybe even a little better than what it is. And, you also want to cook something that you like, the type of meat. Some people don't like lamb, so, don't cook it then. But, as far as getting into competitive barbecue, the way I started was, I went with my dad and we took the class 24 years ago of judging, because you got to know what the judges are looking for and what the criteria is. So I always recommend, to be a certified judge, and that will help you, get your start, and then practice.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, I was shocked. We had a class here, and I was shocked how many of our fellow competitors here in Utah hadn't taken the class. I'm like, really? Okay. I think everyone kind of should. I like to.
Well, I also judge at least once a year. I mean, I just judged a few weeks ago. I judge at least once a year to see what's going on, see what's out there, see how the other fellow judges are judging. And it's really, really interesting. I judged at the Jack for the first time this year, and that was quite an experience. But it really helps to keep you in the loop of what's happening out there, because there's always something new out there.
I'm nervous about the Jack. I always have been. And we talked to Kevin Sandridge of Barbecue Beat, and he was telling me like the kind of firepower there was in the judges' room. I'm like, I'm never cooking that. I I would be a wreck of just like knowing.
There's a lot
Ann
of
Whippen,
judges.
There's all these people. No, I can't.
Yeah, I've competed in the Jack too, so I know what they're up against. So I have a lot of respect for how they got there and the hard work. And I tend to be very fair and not as critical, with my scoring. So because I know in scoring, I just don't like it when I sit down at a table and a judge says, "Oh, I never give 9s." I'm like, oh my God, that just, it just breaks my heart, because I know what goes into it. And I wish that every judge, went with a team and competed, and vice versa, to see what, they actually do, and the kind of money they put out there and the time and effort that it takes.
And it does.
We just talked about that with Sterling Ball. I think all competitors across the board agree with that. One, you should start at a 9 always. 2, you should always go out there and cook, just to see what it's like before you can actually even become a master judge, or even just a KCBS judge in general. Just go out there, get in the trenches.
Well, the master judges, I think they have to cook with a team, but not just regular.
Yeah. And like, I think any competitor should be a judge. I think every judge should have a competitor mind too, because as both, I would never, I don't know. It's much different when you look at it and what everyone goes through. Those cooks, man, they spend a whole lot of money, and they go through the ringer. I mean, it's hard work, and it's exhausting.
Well, and it's also hard not to compare. All right. So they tell you not to compare, and it's just human nature to compare. And so to break out of that and think outside the box, it's a tough challenge, for people that are judging. And so I think that's part of it too.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's hard. We're humans. It is what it is. But so, yeah, judging is I think is a really important thing. And it's an easy kind of, you can go out there and take a barbecue class, which I highly recommend taking barbecue classes. I mean, any of them, doesn't matter what. But a really cheap way to take a barbecue class, in my opinion, is a KCBS class, because, you can at least get a framework of where you're going, and you can build off of that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I had been competing a long time, and I still went to Johnny Trigg's class, Rod Gray's class, and you always pick up little tidbits, and that might be the thing that puts you, makes you grand over reserve. So any piece of information is going to help you. And I definitely agree with you there.
And Rod Gray is not doing classes anymore, which I emailed him, and he's not doing them. So I have to show up on his, it's going to get weird. I'm going to show up at his door and just stay there. So
you're going to show up with a cooler full of meat and say, "Show me how to cook this."
Yeah, I'm not leaving. So chain chick. I've heard his class is amazing. So I would really love him to do that again. If you are listening, which you're probably not, please do that class. I love it. Don't make it don't make it weird. Do the class. So we're talking about barbecue. So what are some advice you can give new barbecuers? And let's not necessarily competition, but just backyard guys too that are just first starting out. We have a lot of them right now listening to this podcast because at the time of recording this is the part of the coronavirus, and a lot of people are at home. And they are the perfect opportunity to practice. So some guy goes out there and goes, "Oh, that grill right there, I'm going to unrust it, and then I'm going to cook something on it." What are we telling that guy? What's some stuff that they should do in your mind that could really elevate their game and really make them prepare some really good food for what we're going through right now? Well, even if you're cooking in the backyard, it costs money to buy meat, obviously. So, you always have to keep that in the back of your head. But things have changed so much with the internet. There are so many videos out there and tutorials that you should really do a lot of research, and that'll save you a lot of money on your meats. And also, instead of trying to do, say you buy a pack of chicken thighs, don't cook all those thighs the same way. Try to cook them all differently, and then you compare. So what I've done is I have friends and family that I would actually do the KCBS score sheets and, do blind judging, and I would have them score. And then a lot of that would help me with what I would do later down. It's almost like doing a contest at home. And I'm a big note taker too. When I'm at competitions, I used to have this whiteboard and I would write everything down. And then at the end of the contest, I would take a picture of it. So I knew exactly what I did if it turned out well, and then what I used the next time. So it's very important to keep a record of everything, what works for you. And also you can't take it to heart if you get a bad judge or whatever, and you tank. Don't ever give up because you tank a contest. Everybody tanks now and again. So you just, keep your head up. The backyard cookers, I've had some backyard food that's better than the professionals. So, more power to them. I just feel as if the backyard cookers, once they have really got some contests under the belt, they need to move to the professionals instead of kicking the butts of the backyard guys that are still there. You know what I mean? It's like, move on. You guys are good enough. Just don't stay top of your game in backyard. It's time to get out. It's like Mike Tyson going, I'm going down to featherweight. Yeah. So, get out of the way and move on,
Totally.
Here in Utah, that's a thing everywhere. But here in Utah, the one, Jesse Johnson, who does a lot of the competitions here, you have a 2-win and you're out backyard competition rule, which I think it's great because I like that. I like it a lot. So you're not just in there like, if you're winning twice in the same year, you probably don't belong here. You should let everyone kind of move out of the way. But yeah, and in backyard, you should probably just do, one meat at a time. And once you master meat, then move on to another one instead of overwhelming yourself and trying to do, everything at once. And another thing that I've learned is I used to cook a ton of meat, just like 20 racks of ribs at a contest. And I learned that you have to cook less and just focus on, those particular meats, all in instead of, going with the numbers game. That's stupid. Right. So what do you cook on? When you're at home, what are you cooking on? Like, let's say what is your porch looking like as far as cookers go? My porch has 2 wicker chairs on it, because I'm not allowed to have a grill here. Yeah. Fortunately, I have a green egg at the restaurant. I just brought out I have 3 bullets that I just cleaned up. And then I have, I just have a lot of smokers at the restaurant. So I pretty much cook on my big smoker though. I mean, it's fired up, and I just, throw stuff on there and fiddle around with it. I don't cook at home anymore just because I don't have it here. And you've done green eggs for a long time. So long, you were cooking green eggs you've been on that forever, haven't you? Yeah, no, I still cook on green eggs. My daughter, I bought her one for Christmas. She has like 2 in her backyard, and she's got a Traeger now, which I'm not that experienced with. So I want to work with her a little bit on that. And of course, bullets we always have those. So I don't know. I like all different kinds of cookers.
Right. So what was it like traveling with a green egg? I've always like seeing those, and I'm like, oh man, I can't imagine one of those tipping over during.
That was a horrible nightmare. I used to bring 3 of them at a time, and I'd have these little wood ramps and push them up in it. Yeah, and on one of the Pitmaster shows, one of them broke because they're easy to break. You know, they say push, don't pull, whatever the saying is. And that's very true. But they have definitely, the bases of the eggs are a lot more sturdy, whereas they used to be wobbly before. So I can see the difference in that. And a green egg, you know, is like keep it in the backyard, stationary. You know, when I was doing a lot of work with green egg, they were going to build me a cart, but I just didn't have the room for it. But that's the biggest problem with those. But I really like to at least have one with me when I'm competing. So I just don't bring 3 anymore.
Right. And you don't borrow anybody's either. We learned that as well.
Yeah. No. So let me tell you a little story.
Awesome.
On the Pitmaster show, the one in Texas, where I was accused of using lighter fluid, those were new green eggs. Okay. So I thought, well, maybe it was a new green egg. It wasn't seasoned, so maybe that was that lighter fluid taste. Well, I found out later that in the morning when they were shooting commercials and stuff, they had lit the green eggs, and we were all at hair and makeup or whatever it was. And the people on the set put the lighter fluid in it to get more smoke to come out of the cooker. Oh. So in fact, I didn't know this, but there really was lighter fluid actually in that egg, but I didn't find out till much later.
Oh, wow.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Ouch.
And they thought it was really funny after that whole thing to stick a container of lighter fluid on my table. Like I had it there the whole time, which is not true.
As Myron's over there pumping gallons and gallons.
Oh, yeah. Because he hasn't had an accident. No, he yeah, he's good at that.
What's that dude like in real life? Is he really that big of an ass in a way?
You know what?
I should say his attitude.
I knew Myron before we even did Pitmasters, and he's like a big teddy bear. You just don't want to get on the wrong side of him, but he really, he is extremely talented, and he's really a lot of fun to be around, quite frankly.
That's kind of what I thought. Like he puts us on this persona, like I'm the man, don't leave me alone. But I get a couple jacks it with him, and while you're bullshitting with him, and
yeah,
I'm pretty sure he'll chill out.
Crown Royal and all that. Yeah. So no, he's a great individual. Been friends with him for years. Yeah.
It's awesome.
Which is also part of this whole great barbecue experience, is all the friends that you make along the way. And I mean, years and years friends. And, Dirty Dick, who used to compete up with me in Bel Air and even down in Tryon, North Carolina, ran into him at the Jack, and we hung out the whole time. And it was just, I hadn't seen him in years, and it's just like we were back in the day. And it's really a great experience, retaining friendships for a long time.
Yeah, well, that's how Rusty and I met. We haven't even been friends for a year, and here we are doing a podcast together. It's awesome.
It is. It brings you together for sure.
And that's the best part is like, and just the love that everyone shows you. Like I just started taking Pitmaster duties at a restaurant locally, and I cook it in the backyard, do all that stuff. I've never held a brisket before. I've never had to hold ribs or turkey, and anything like that.
Yeah.
And so I'm reaching out to people, man, I'm getting just lit up, and everyone's just like more than willing to share what they know.
Yeah.
And people people on this podcast that I've never met face to face, and they're just like, oh yeah, of course, do this. And Lene helps a ton, it's just really cool environment because everyone's just kind of out there helping each other out. And it's almost like, I don't know, I hate to say the word war, but you're just kind of in it, in this like environment all the time with each other, and
well,
it's just,
of course they're willing to give you advice if you aren't competing against them at a contest. Then they get the credit.
That's right. That's probably true.
Yeah.
But it's cool. I mean, even there's some people that are pretty tight-lipped, but at the same time, we have a pretty good relationship with our team, Salt City Barbecue, with Crooked Pigs. They're a very, very good competition team here out west. And man, he's just Matt, and they're just great guys to share recipes with, and they're going to tell you what they know. And a lot of people, helps out.
I respect people that really do tell the truth on, what they're doing, because ultimately it comes down to you being the cooker, because this is not an exact science. As you know, it's not an exact recipe. Yes, there are certain things that work in competition, but you really got to know how to cook. A piece of meat and get the right smoke on it and everything else. And, you're going to have good days and bad days, but, I could, give you pages and pages of information that I have from over the years, and you'll look at it and say, oh, great, what am I going to do with that? It depends on how you apply it too.
Yeah.
Right.
And so that kind of leads me to my next question, kind of moving into the competitive world. So what is the most important you think someone can learn in competition barbecue?
Timing. That's one. Also, don't cheap out on your meat. Buy high quality meats, of course. But timing is extremely critical, because you can be DQ'd if you have, if your box doesn't hit at the right time. And you just got to basically look at your turn-in times and then back up. Back up your hours. How long do you cook your ribs? And then how long do you let them sit out if you do? And so the timeline, I think, is one of the most critical things. When you put your meat on, what you're used to cooking at, whatever temperature. So I would say that's the most important for me anyway.
Mm-hmm. I mean, because you can cook the perfect rib, and if you cook it too early, then you're going to sit. It's not going to be the same rib in 30 minutes.
Absolutely not. It's like a steak. You know what I mean? Yeah, you can let it rest for a little while, but it's not going to be. Yeah, and ribs can tighten up if you try to put them back on again. Meat does really weird stuff, when you try to bring it back or you try to hold it. And I know that just from being in the restaurant world. So, timing's super important.
Yeah, and with that timing whole aspect too, I did it when I first started in a bar backyard. I went to Harbor Freight and just got a stopwatch, and literally I pushed start as soon as I was taking my rack of ribs out of the plastic, and I pressed stop when it was time to pretty much cut them and eat them. So that gave me my ballpark time.
Well, you also have to think about your boxes. Some of these boxes take time to build. And so, your pork might be ready, 15 minutes before turn-in, but it takes you 10 minutes to build the box properly. Right. So, you got to work on your boxes too, and the timing of that. So you got to work it all in.
That's what my wife's for. She does that part.
She doesn't build the box. She actually does the garnish in the box, right?
Yeah.
Or does she
that'd be amazing. She actually garnishes the box, and then I get the cuts of meat that I want and set there, and then literally I turn it over to my wife and my cousin, because he has an artistic eye, and I just give it to them, and they do what they do with the box. I kind of lean over the shoulder, move it this way. This is how I want it to look, and then they take over and they actually build it.
That's perfect teamwork. That's
so you've never actually competed then, because that is the worst part, right? You've never experienced the hardest part of barbecue competitions.
Remember, I did this for 3 years by myself, Rusty. But for that. Currently that's the process.
That would be awesome. My wife is very Dewey Decimal about stuff. I'm not, so she does the boxes for sure. I'm just like, leaves plop, she's in there like surgically removing, it's like a surgery. So one thing I have a question for, something I struggled with when I was as a barbecue competition cook, is that moment you pull off that food and you start boxing it. So a lot of people are like, hustle, hustle, hustle. And there's others that are just like, you know what? I'm going to take my time. It's cold food. The judges aren't going to get warm food anyway. Where do you fall into that category?
You got to have it at least warm. You do. Because I had cold meat at the Jack, and the fat starts to congeal, and it just loses its tenderness. And I think the flavor kind of gets diminished. So, sometimes I do take my time on the boxes, but I still want to have it warm. So I'll wrap up my box or whatever it is, put a little warm jus on there, whatever, just to keep it a little bit warm. But I think you do have to have it on the warm side. You're right. It's not going to go in and hot and stay hot, especially with the shuffling of the boxes and the tables and all that stuff. But you definitely don't want it cold.
Yeah. And that was my hardest thing, is that I was just such in a hurry to get it hot, and I would just, let's just throw it in. It's fine. And so we definitely learned to slow down a little bit, and we do serve the warm stuff. We try to keep it warm, but it's hard, man. That's the hardest part. Ooh, just thinking about it gets my palms
your
sweaty.
Sauce, obviously, if you heat up your sauce, it's going to help keep it warm. It's those little details that are going to make the difference.
Well, that's one thing that I kind of do too, is my sauce is when I'm done, like getting it ready for the box, I usually put my sauce right over the hot fire, almost get it boiling, and then I'll drizzle the rest on there, and hopefully the sauce keeps it.
You have to remember though, if you get it too hot, it changes the profile of the sauce. Like some of these sauces will get super spicy on you. So you got to be careful of not overdoing it too.
Right.
So
yeah. My finishing sauce though is like almost like water in a way. I dilute it down so much anyway. So
yeah, so you're fine.
So that's what I do. I get it roaring, boiling, and then I finish it with it. And
so that helps keep it warm.
You boil the sauce. Is it sugary?
No, well, at first it is, but I dilute it down so much, dude. It's like literally like I hold the brush and it just comes off almost like a waterfall.
Because I do really, when I do Blues Hog, I'll get that to a boil. It's no longer Blues Hog. It's like Walmart. Yeah, it's good like value.
Molasses.
Molasses. It really is. I'm just like, that's paste. So yeah, that was a big concern of mine at first, and holding different stuff like that. What are some things that you've experienced on the competition trail that you were able to that really happened that were just bad situations that you kind of overcame that maybe someone might run into?
I've had 2 grease fires.
Oh.
Yeah, so that's bad. But you just kind of, the thing is, you got to understand that oxygen, feeds the fire, and that's what's going to make it, get worse. So instead of like trying to throw water on it and possibly hit your meat, it's just close every vent, close every door, and it'll go away pretty quickly. So you can recover sometimes with that. But, I think some of the biggest challenges is weather. It could be freezing cold, it could be raining. And, that's another thing. You can think that your cooker and everything, but if you haven't cooked at, in it with the elements, you haven't really learned your cooker. You know what I mean? Yeah, so, true. It'll be, like even in Virginia, I remember it was snowing and I had this green blanket. I put it around the bullet and I called it the Green Monster. But I knew in order for it to hold like 275, it needed some insulation of some sort. And so if you're going to go into a contest where you have that, if you haven't really worked with your cooker and the weather, then you're going to be also under the gun. So there's so many things to think about.
Yeah. And then also with like wind, like a lot of people don't realize when they're cooking out there, and if the wind changes, you gotta be able to like, oh man, the wind's coming heavily from the south. I need to twist my grill a little bit just to help with that cook. If not, like you said, it'll burn hot, or sometimes it'll pull all the heat off it, and you're gonna
and then then you've got places like, I remember I was at the Frisco Challenge in Colorado. You got to deal with the altitude there. That's another thing. If you're cooking in that part of the country, you have to think about that when you're cooking too.
Yeah, and see, we live in Utah, so it's really cold. It can get really hot. And the contest that we've done recently, we're in Montana, and literally a blizzard. It wasn't a blizzard. It was bad. Okay, I'm dramatic, but it was really bad. It was cold. Went down to Arizona just recently. I'm thinking, all right, it's winter. It's December. We're going to go down to Arizona. It's going to be hot. No. It's 20 degrees in the morning with rain. And I'm like, what is this? I mean, and so we go to Boise, Idaho, and it's 75 degrees with no wind. I'm like, we're packing up. We're leaving, guys. We're gone. We're not going to be able to win this one. There's no elements. So we know how to work. I mean, here, my team specifically, man, we're here cooking in the snow, and I mean, we're out there we had a practice in literally a snowstorm, and it's something.
Yeah, it's good.
You take advantage of it. If it's snowing, don't call it off. If it's raining, don't call it off.
No.
Embrace it, because trust me, it's going to happen. Especially if you know how to this, and you know that. But man, I don't think we've ever cooked besides Boise, Idaho, in good weather ever. I don't think it exists in the West. Wow. Anyway, in the West, we're we'll volatile.
I've been there.
I don't know. We have some pretty good ones in July or June, I should say. But
oh yeah, great. Yeah, they're 130 degrees. That was fun. That was so fun. You're right. Yeah, it's fun. I'm boiling eggs on the pavement. It's awesome. I love it.
Oh yeah, I remember the Texas Motor Speedway, that contest. People, fried eggs right on the tar. It was terrible. So hot.
Oh man.
Yeah. So going back, so I keep on the barbecue theme, a competition barbecue theme. So you kind of mentioned doing a backyard competition when you're first starting out. And classes in KCBS. What are some other advice you can give someone who is in the backyard competition right now and looking to jump into a pro competition cook?
As I said, do one meat at a time. So, start with chicken or whatever, and then feel like you've kind of mastered it if you've done well in your awards or whatever, and move on to the next meat. So just try to master each meat at a time rather than do it all at one time. So that would be my recommendation.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I would have had that tip.
Let me guess, you did all 4 categories and then you did anything but.
Yeah. Yep. And then there's all kinds of, then you're trying to throw beanbag toss in there and try to drink a little bit in there too. And it didn't turn out very well.
Beanbag toss.
What's that?
A beanbag toss, like cornhole?
Whatever. Cornhole. Yeah. Whatever.
Why are you playing
cornhole? Obviously, till I don't play that very much.
Yeah. There was that last contest in St. George.
Another thing is I recommend getting to your site at a reasonable time. You don't want to be rushing from work and trying to set up and start your cook that night, on Friday night. You should really try to get in there earlier in the day, get your meat inspected, get yourself comfortable so you aren't rushing around, get everything all organized in your site. So I think, getting to the contest, early in the morning is probably a good idea also.
Once again, another good tip I wish I would have known. Not until last year I used to do that exactly. Last year was the only year I was like, I'm taking days off. I'm going to get there early. And yes, but prior to that.
Oh, and another
run
big
home,
mistake.
Grab my smokers and head up.
One of the biggest mistakes that I've made, and I did it over and over and over again, is with the darn garnish, is that I thought it was a good idea to put lettuce and parsley with ice. So like to have a bag of ice near it. Well, that's like the worst thing you can do. So I learned that I would always put, whether it be a turn-in box or whatever, not even a turn-in box, but let's just say something in between the ice and the greens, because you want it cold, but if you get it next to the ice, it's going to ruin your greens. Mm-hmm. So I learned that the hard way.
Yeah, they wilt really easy.
Yes, they do.
How important is it to you to have a really good looking box? And I mean, not before the meat, but like when you're putting your parsley in, when you're putting your greens in, are you pretty hardcore about what you put in? Or are you kind of the point where I just greens fine?
I'm hardcore. You know what? If you're going to do this, do everything to the best that you can. Even though I am not a garnish fan, I wish there was no garnish. If you're going to do it right. So I'm a perfectionist when it comes to all of it.
Yeah, I'm glad, because I tried, but I'm so bad. I can't. I start putting them in, and I'm just like 3 in.
Your wife there.
Yeah, dude, literally, my wife will sit there and make sure all the parsley is the exact same size leaves. Like, it's a whole nother level. Like,
people's brain actually work like that. That's a real thing.
No, I'm like by myself. I'm like, give me some kale, throw it in there really easy. But my wife, she is awesome. I'll send you some photos of her boxes so you can see.
I would love to see it. Yeah.
But yeah, so it's that for me is, I see a lot of people just there's 2 fences on that, man. There's one side that is, there's green, it's whatever. And there's like, man, there's people just make it pretty and they'll use different things. Is there a certain kind of garnish you prefer that is easier and looks great? Or you try really hard to, like, parsley is hard, but green leaf is easier.
Green leaf is easier, but I like certain meats on green leaf and I like certain meats on parsley. And, now in this last contest, I was seeing a lot where they cut the rounds of the lettuce and they keep it underneath, and it's probably less time to build the box. And when you open the box, you can't even see it anyway. So it really doesn't matter. When they're judging for appearance, nobody's going to see it. So it is going to save you some time and aggravation. So there's, different tricks and things you can use, but yeah, like I really like parsley with brisket. It's just a thing for me. I just think it looks really pretty. And I like lettuce with chicken. I don't know. It's what I like, and that's what I hope they'll like. So do you go in there and have parsley and have green leaf and just use them for different meats? Yeah. Yeah, I bring it all.
Nice.
So that said, a couple things. So when you're placing your meat in there, this new thing I'm seeing a lot of people are doing is they're not putting in any burnt ends, and they're no longer, I'm seeing a lot of people who are just foregoing the pull of the pork. How do you box up your briskets? Are you just die hard, I'm putting burnt ends in, that's it? Or how do you make that the judgment? The decision is based on what comes out the best. So if my brisket, from the flat is great sliced and my burnt ends are off the hook, I'm going to put them both in there. Honestly, if my sliced is not good, I'll just put burnt ends in. You don't want to have the judge mark you down for bad meat. You want to put in the best possible thing that you can. Now, I see a little
thing going on with the money muscle, which is very disturbing. So you get the sliced money muscle, and then they, they're pulling the pork, but they're using the money muscle. It's all money muscle, but in different forms. And I just know what they're doing, and that bugs me, and it just really does. And I don't like judging meat. People have to be really careful with these injections. I see injection marks, discoloration, over-injected. So if you're going to use an injection, make sure you know what you're doing, because quite frankly, if you have a good piece of meat, I do not inject any sort of meat except brisket. And I'm super, super careful about it, because I just don't like to see the marks, and I really want them to taste the beefiness and more of the salt and pepper in the rub that I use. I like to make it more of like a Texas style. It's just me.
So how are you avoiding that pocket? Because I've seen it too. You cut in, you get that slice of brisket, and there's just this big round circle sitting there. What are some things that people are doing, do you think, that are causing that?
Well, when you inject, when you have your injector, you have to put it in and then slowly push the injector as you're drawing out. You can't just push it and get little pockets. So you're distributing the injection more evenly if you are drawing it out. And I also tend to inject on an angle versus straight up and down. So, and
then with the grain as well as too, right? That's how I do it anyways.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. And I've heard both ways. I've heard with and against. I've heard both do against the grain and with the grain. I've heard all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So you're doing it with the grain, and you're just kind of sliding
with the
grain
angle, and just like a draw and on an angle.
Every square inch, or
no.
No.
No. I see that's just too much. I am more of like a couple inches apart. Really.
Couple inches.
Because when it's on an angle, you're kind of drawing up and you're going that distance anyway, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, the distance of the needle. Yeah, that makes sense.
See, and I use a certain gauge of needle for a lot of things, specifically brisket. I'm using 16 gauges now. Not 16 gauge. I'm not like I have 16 needles that go. No, I'm just kidding. A 16 gauge needle that is 2 inches long is what I started using, and I think it made all the difference on the holes that you're talking about. Because I used to see when I first started, I went and just got an injector, and it looked like something off of Little Shop of Horrors. When he's trying to. Whoa.
Yeah.
And it was terrible. And I was like, it was big, it had a big old needle on it. And you could just look down and know where I poked that on that brisket,
Yeah, you can tell.
So if you're using that, guys, thin up your needle. Any veterinarian supply store is going to have any kind of gauge of needle and disposable. I personally am
but you also have to think about what's in your injection. Mm-hmm. So you don't want to clog the injector either with, if, say you have mustard seed in there or whatever. You have to be, make sure you're practicing and that it works and it's not going to get clogged up and all that stuff too. So you can't be too small if you have larger pieces of stuff in there.
Yeah. And so you don't inject ribs, you don't inject chicken, you're not injecting pork.
No, I brine my chicken though.
Oh, you brine it?
Absolutely.
I don't try that. Yeah, it's kind of funny because when you inject, a lot of people, I tell everyone, competition barbecue is a Frankenstein form of cooking, there's people out there and they're using 3 different injections, mixtures, 4 or 5 different things in their injection, 3 different rubs, 4 different sauces, and then a finishing rub, and it's just kind of crazy. So I would personally, I think that's kind of scary for a lot of people. I would like to see how well and how well just dumbed down barbecue could work these days, like it used to be.
That's what I said when I was at the Jack. It got me so excited to hit the circuit again because it was all the same taste profile. And I was like, I just go back to old school. It's just where you can really taste the pork and you can taste the beef and not all these underlying agents or whatever else they're throwing in there. It's kind of disheartening. So I know for sure that when I go back, I am going to be doing some of my old school stuff and see how I fare.
That's awesome.
So when did you see that? When did you see that twist? Because a lot of the people that were competing in like the early 2000s and then mid 2000s, they've all had that same comment. They seen a breaking point where it went from original barbecue to everybody has to be the same.
Well, it's, the people who were winning were, somehow people were finding out what they were doing, and then people were copying them. And then it just, it spreads like wildfire. But I remember when, the Fab came out, I was like, what's Fab? I even called the guy who developed that stuff way long time ago. And he's now since passed. But I remember him telling me the whole chemistry and stuff behind it. And it was very intriguing. And, and then it was everywhere. Everybody was using it. So, it was like, oh, and use the chicken fab on the pork. It's like, why not use the pork fab on the pork if that's what it's called? And then it was, and dilute it with this and don't use that. There's always something going on, and there's only so much you could test and try. So that's why using the internet, that'll field a lot of your questions and you'll see a lot of stuff.
So a couple of things, we'll just wrap up here. What do you see like the future of barbecue going with, a lot of people coming into this sport right now? Back in the day, you could just get a brisket, it was probably $1 a pound, before everyone started buying it. And now it's so expensive. And now we're buying A9s from Florida. We're buying, Snake Rivers from Idaho, and they're like $180 per. Some are cooking too, at the same time. They're now going from compart, different kind of porks that are very costly. Stuff like that. So you have someone looking into that world and seeing, okay, it's going to cost me $1,200 to do barbecue. Is there a way that you know of that can kind of help them with that? Or just when they're starting out, do you suggest going all the way from the top down? Or do you think there's a way?
Hey, if you can get a choice brisket and make it taste good, can you imagine what you can do with, a prime or a Wagyu? Mm-hmm. So why not test on less costly meat and figure out your flavor profile, your tenderness, and then knock it out of the park when you invest the money on the better piece of meat? Because people can't afford to do that. I mean, I'm lucky. I'm at the restaurant. I get tons of meat in, so I can try things all day long. But I remember in my backyard, I was like, I'm going to buy a whole brisket. Oh, maybe I'll just buy the flat today. And it's just like, but if you can cook a mediocre piece of meat well, then you're going to do really well with a better piece of meat. When I was at this contest, a month or so ago, judging, and these guys were competitors too, and they're like, oh, and I take the A9, and I'm like, it's turned into like this, like, it's not even barbecue anymore. I feel like it's, I don't know, but, as I said, I'm going to go back to old school and see what happens.
It's funny because when I first got into competition barbecue, I had this girl I went to high school with on my Facebook, and I'd post my competition. She goes, that's not barbecue, always. And I was, of course, okay, she's going to post that's not barbecue. And so I went and I started cooking in the back of the yard, a lot of stuff, and just kind of really experimenting and really putting all my attention into cooking at home. And now I look at that barbecue and I go, that's not barbecue.
Yeah.
That's competition food.
That's funny.
So let's talk a little bit about your restaurant, the Deviled Pig Restaurant. Mm-hmm. Where can people find you there, and where's it located and all that stuff?
So I'm actually on a very busy street in South Tampa. It's 3307 South Dale Mabry, and it's a small restaurant. We do predominantly takeout and carry out, especially today. Mm-hmm. And we're very grateful for the community and the fact that that was kind of our forte. So we're actually surviving this horrible thing, and business is better than ever. But it's, we're using a local wood source, so that we have 4 different kinds of wood. We're using cherry, hickory, oak, and pecan. Then we're using an old school bakery for our bread, La Segunda. So we're incorporating a lot of the local companies and things into our menu, as well as the menu concept is designed around Tampa. So we have, like our Cubans, which are really a big deal down here. So we smoke our bologna, melt the Swiss cheese, put the pulled pork, brisket, pickles, and then we use our mustard sauce on it, and it's on the Cuban bread, that we get. And then our namesake dish is the deviled pig, which is named after, which was founded in Ybor City, the deviled crab. So it's basically a round deep fried ball of pulled pork rather than crab traditionally, with sauteed peppers, onions, and a sriracha sauce. So we really sell a lot of those. So we're just trying to bring the Tampa flair and flavors and integrate it into our barbecue. And again, all sauces on the side. And we have 5 different sauces, so you could experience the South Carolina, the Eastern North Carolina vinegar, the tomato-based sauces, and then our Floribama white sauce.
Man, I'm so happy you do a bologna sandwich. I'm so happy about the bologna sandwich. I am so pumped on bologna. You have no idea.
I'm telling you, it sells like Tampa, crazy. Huh? I eat that bologna every single day. And, pig powders, my dad's family secret rub. And so my sister and I have kind of taken that on because my dad unfortunately passed away 2 months ago. So the pig powder, we're going to get our site up and running and make that more readily available because we've had a lot of people wanting it.
That's awesome.
I've even wanted it. So
you keep talking that menu, man. Rusty's going to end up like, Brady and move to Tampa.
Yeah.
It's hard. I just love food. I can't help it. We start talking about it and I'm like, oh man, I just love bologna sandwiches. I used to have the Oscar Mayer growing up and, we'd have the white bread with the mayo and the American cheese and just the bologna. And it was great. But then you smoke bologna and it's a whole new ball game. It's one of the best meats smoked, I think, out there. And no one's doing it. Really, especially here.
A few people, but we go through. Yesterday, we went through one big roll in one day, and those are in little 2-ounce slices. That's a lot of bologna to sell in one day, especially during this whole Corona thing. So, we've kind of partnered with. A company that is delivering complimentary meals to the families in need. So we're working closely with the community to help out in that respect. Wow. So it's been very rewarding as well as difficult.
Nice. So we're going to come up with you're coming out with the website for the pig powder and everything. Is there anything else? Is there anything else that you have going on in the future? Are you going to?
Right now, I'm going to focus on that and then probably integrate that into a sauce line as well as a jerky line. So those are just some things we're thinking about. But right now, we're just trying to make the transition as easy for current customers, to get it to them as soon as we can.
Well, I want to try some of that when it comes available for sure.
It's delicious.
Yeah, 100%.
You sell it for sure. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah.
So
go ahead.
Bobby Flay mentioned it a lot on the show. He loves it. He's a huge fan of it.
So where can people find you right now? So on the socials or anything like that?
So right now we have an email. Well, it's pigpowderrub@gmail.com. And then we've built the site and now we're just incorporating the shopping carts. And so it'll be a 12-ounce retail, a 22-ounce. And then we will get into the 25-pound boxes, for the restaurants.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, cool, guys. We really super appreciate you coming on. Like I said, I'm a huge fan. Yes. Been a fan for a long time. And if I ever get out to Tampa Bay, I'm going to have to come get a bologna sandwich because that is life. Yeah. That is absolute life.
And we have a half-pound bologna sandwich.
I'd take that.
There you go, Rusty.
That'll do the trick.
Sold. Man, heck yeah. So cool. And we super appreciate you. And guys, if you're out in Florida and Tampa Bay, just go, even driving through, check out the restaurant and stop in and get some drive-through. And
we're open 7 days from 11 to 8 now. Yeah, so we're there all the time.
Nice. Awesome. Well, hey, we appreciate your time. And thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you. And you all stay safe.